March 28th, 1941. The Ionian Sea, south of the Greek mainland. 2,210 hours. Pitch dark, no moon, a calm sea. 3 British capital ships steam in line ahead at 6 knots, guns trained out to starboard, completely blacked out. Ahead of them, unaware they are being stalked, sailed 2 Italian heavy cruisers and a pair of destroyers, the survivors of a fleet that had sailed out that morning expecting to ambush a British convoy. They have no radar. They do not know the British are within 4,000 yards. In the next 10 minutes, the lead ship of this British force will help annihilate that Italian squadron so completely that the Regia Marina will never again risk its heavy units in a fleet action for the rest of the war. The ship that made it possible was a vessel critics had written off years earlier, a cruiser design the Admiralty itself considered a compromise, undergunned against newer foreign rivals, lightly armored, built down to a treaty limit rather than up to a fighting standard. That night off Cape Matapan, she helped destroy 3 Italian warships in roughly 10 minutes of close-range gunfire. This is how an obsolete ship became the instrument of the most one-sided night action that the Royal Navy fought in the Second World War. The strategic picture had been building for a week. In late March 1941, German pressure on Italy to interdict British troop convoys running to Greece forced Admiral Angelo Iachino to take the Italian fleet to sea. His flagship, the new battleship Vittorio Veneto, led a powerful force, 8 heavy cruisers, destroyers, all hunting for a convoy route the Luftwaffe had told Rome was vulnerable. Admiral Sir Andrew Cunningham, commanding the British Mediterranean Fleet from Alexandria, had the advantage the Italians did not know he possessed. Ultra intercepts had given him Iachino's sailing orders almost before the Italian fleet had cleared harbor. Cunningham sailed his own battle fleet to intercept, while a light cruiser squadron under Vice Admiral Henry Pridham Whipple shadowed and skirmished with the Italians through the daylight hours of March 28th. By evening, British torpedo bombers from the carrier Formidable had struck Vittorio Veneto and crippled the heavy cruiser Pola, leaving her dead in the water. Iachino, unaware the British battle fleet was anywhere near, detached 2 more heavy cruisers and 4 destroyers to go back and rescue Pola. He was sending warships into the dark, directly across the path of the most powerful force in the Mediterranean, with no idea it was there. To understand why what followed was so lopsided, you have to understand what the cruiser at the head of the British line actually was, because on paper, she was nothing special. Built to the strict limits of the 1930 London Naval Treaty, she displaced under 10,000 tons standard, mounted 8 8-inch guns and 4 twin turrets, and carried armor measured in inches rather than feet, a 3-inch belt at best over her machinery spaces. Naval commentators in the 1930s had criticized this entire class of treaty cruiser as a false economy. Ships with a heavy cruiser's gun caliber and a light cruiser's protection, vulnerable to anything that could close the range. By 1941, with newer, better protected cruisers entering service in Germany, Italy, and Japan, critics considered the design outdated before the war had even reached its second year. What the specifications did not capture was what had been built into her since commissioning and refined relentlessly through 2 years of war. She carried one of the first operational sets of Type 279 air warning radar fitted to a British cruiser. And more importantly for that night, she had been equipped and drilled extensively in night fighting gunnery, a discipline the Royal Navy had invested in specifically because its peacetime exercises had identified night action as the one scenario where British optical range finding and fire. Control doctrine held a decisive edge over every potential opponent, including the Italians, whose navy had almost no equivalent night fighting training. Her gun directors were paired with searchlight control systems rehearsed to bring a target under illumination and accurate fire within seconds, not minutes. Her crews had practiced blind tracking by hydrophone effect and by radar plot long before most navies considered it standard procedure. The ship herself was unremarkable. The institution that trained her crew was not. If you're enjoying this look at how the Royal Navy turned doctrine into decisive results, a quick subscribe helps the channel keep producing deep dives like this one. At 2010 hours, Cunningham's battleships Warships, Valiant, and Barham altered course toward the stricken Pola, intending to finish her off and screen the rescue operation the Italians were about to walk straight into. The light cruiser at the head of the screening line, leading the battle fleet through the dark, picked up a radar contact at 2,203 hours, large ships at roughly 6 miles, closing. She reported it immediately to Cunningham's flagship. The contact resolved into the Italian rescue force, the heavy cruisers Zara and Fiume, and 4 destroyers, steaming in column toward the drifting Pola with no idea anything was within 20 miles of them. Cunningham closed the range in near total silence. At 2,227 hours, the British battle line, with a cruiser screen leading, came within 4,000 yards of the Italian column, point-blank range for naval rifles of any caliber. The order was given to switch on searchlights. The cruiser's beam, and those of the battleships behind her, caught the Italian heavy cruiser Fiume broadside, her turrets still trained fore and aft, guns not even loaded for a surface engagement. Warships, Valiant, and Barham opened fire with their 15-inch main batteries at a range so short that the guns could barely depress enough, while the light cruisers and destroyers raked the Italian destroyers and the second heavy cruiser, Zara, with everything they had. Fiume was hit repeatedly within the first minute and rolled over and sank within 20. Zara, set ablaze and reduced to a drifting wreck under the battleship's fire, was finished off by torpedoes from British destroyers before dawn. 2 of the 4 Italian destroyers, Vittorio Alfieri and Josue Carducci, were shattered by the same close-range broadsides and went down within the same brief engagement. Pola, already crippled and unable to fight back, was boarded, her surviving crew taken off, then sunk by torpedo. In roughly 10 minutes of point-blank gunfire, the Italian rescue force had ceased to exist. The cruiser's part in this was not incidental. Her radar contact report had given Cunningham the position and course of the Italian force in time to maneuver his entire battle line into a perfect ambush. Her searchlight crews, drilled for exactly this scenario, found and held the target the instant the order came, giving the battleship's gun directors a fully illuminated broadside to aim at from the first salvo. Without that radar pickup and that searchlight discipline, the Italian column might have slipped past in the dark entirely, or the engagement might have opened at a range where Italian numbers and torpedoes could have even the odds. Italian casualties that night exceeded 2,300 men killed, including the squadron commander, Admiral Carlo Cattaneo. British casualties amounted to 1 aircraft, and its crew lost the following day to friendly fire in the confusion of rescue operations. No British ship was hit. The strategic consequence was immediate and permanent. The Battle of Cape Matapan was the last time the Italian fleet committed its heavy units to a major surface engagement against the Royal Navy for the remainder of the war. Mussolini's navy, the 4th largest in the world at the war's outbreak, effectively withdrew from contesting British control of the central and eastern Mediterranean at sea. Cunningham's own report on the action praised the gunnery and damage control of every ship engaged, and the cruiser that had found the enemy in the dark and held him in her searchlight beam went on to serve through the rest of the Mediterranean campaign, through Crete, through the invasions of Sicily and Italy, her supposedly obsolete hull still in the front-line years after critics had pronounced her finished. What Matapan proved was not that the treaty cruiser had been a good design on paper. It had not. Her armor was thin, her displacement was a political compromise, and naval architects had been correctly identifying her limitations since the day she was launched. What the night action proved was that a ship is only as obsolete as the doctrine behind her. The same hull, in a Navy that had not invested 2 decades in night fighting drill and radar development, in searchlight coordination, and in officers trained to act decisively the instant a contact was confirmed, would have been exactly as vulnerable as her specifications suggested. In the hands of a crew drilled for precisely this kind of engagement, she became the trigger for the most complete tactical destruction the Royal Navy inflicted on an enemy surface force in the entire war. 10 minutes. 3 Italian warships sunk, a 4th scuttled before dawn, and a Navy that never again risked its capital ships in the open sea. The critics had measured her guns and her armor. They had not measured the institution that put her in exactly the right place, at exactly the right range in the dark.